we are getting to the point in our restricted guide series for Regulation G where things are just kind of not as powerful as we would like them to be. There tends to be a little bit more optimization you can do by just simply switching a restricted. But today, regardless, we are going to be talking about Solgaleo. Once again, guys, in case you couldn't tell by the intro, I really don't think this thing has a place in this meta. You're going to have to work a little bit too hard just to justify trying to get these wins. However, we're not all here only for wins. So if you are looking to try and use Solgaleo, I am going to at least break it down or attempt to break it down for you on how you can go about approaching this. And Solgaleo is indeed one of the few physical restricted in this format where you do not have a clear amulet set. Clear amulet on this Pokemon doesn't make any sense at all. Full metal body basically acts as that. You cannot have your stats lowered, and that is a very, very strong ability. Naturally speaking, historically speaking, not being able to have your stats lowered is really, really strong. Now, in the past, you would pair this beside like a Spectrier, and you would Dynamax, you would click Bulldoze, you'd proc your own weakness policy. The meta doesn't allow for that anymore. It just really doesn't. You don't have the ability to Dynamax, so you're not getting a double into your HP. You're not getting any sort of big beneficial attacks from the Sunsteel Strike. Yeah, you still get the +2. It's still alright, perhaps, but it's just not something I can see, but you could probably go back and try to do it. I just don't think it's worth it, in my opinion, right now. In terms of items, we'll get into that when we talk about the sets. But overall, guys, there's not a lot going on here. You get Sunsteel Strike, which you do get Snarl, actually, now that I see that, but Sunsteel Strike, that is basically your signature move. It is a 100-100 steel move, and once again, like Lunala's ability, or like Lunala's move, it goes through the abilities of other Pokemon. Meaning, once again, the most consistent usage we've ever seen from Sunsteel Strike is to go through, like, the Mimikyu's Disguise, or the likes of something like that, but we don't see that right now on Solgaleo right here, right? Like, you don't have the Pokemon you're really taking advantage of that ability, of that secondary effect on, but it's still nice to have around. You know, does it ignore Terra Shell? I feel like it would ignore Terra Shell, but the problem is it just doesn't matter. You don't have anything after that, right? You get Close Combat, which is kind of cool. You get Wild Charge, which is cool. You get Flare Blitz, which is cool, right? It's just, all of these things are cool, but none of them are necessarily good. You do get access to Psychic Fangs as well. It's just, like I said, there's a lot of cool moves here. You get Wide Guard, but are any of them actually, like, good? Like, I don't think as cool of options as you get with, like, Crunch and Knockoff as well, right? You do have a lot of coverage on Solgaleo. I just, frankly, looking at its stats, it's not enough to justify using Solgaleo as my restricted. There's nothing else to say. That is simply the case here. I can't justify running Solgaleo in this metagame right now. It just doesn't make sense to me. Of course, I did try to get a few sets where I think maybe there's a niche and it's not just completely suboptimal, but there is not a lot going on for this. You get Stone Edge as well, but at that point, that's your best move to try and kill Incineroar. But then you're running Stone Edge, running an 80% accurate move. That just doesn't feel that just doesn't feel good, you know? So set 1, actually, I'm going to go set 2 first. I think I like set 2 a little bit better. But set 2 is probably where you're going to spend most of your time on this. If you're trying to run a Solgaleo, I do like an Assault Vest. But once again, I'm now wasting my Assault Vest on a subpar restricted when I could have like a Rillaboom with an AV, an Incineroar with an AV. Something that may appreciate the Assault Vest a little bit more. However, if you're looking to run it, AV Solgaleo is cool. Like I said, you get a lot of coverage. So having 4 attacks simply makes sense, you know? You get to go Sunsteel Strike, and you get to go Psychic Fangs. Both of your 2 stabs, you get to at least hit things decently hard. You don't one-shot Amoonguss. In fact, Sunsteel Strike is so pathetic that, or should be so pathetic coming off a 137 attack stat, that it doesn't even guarantee that you're killing a Calyrex Ice. You don't even kill a Calyrex Ice with this Sunsteel Strike. And that is really, really sad. Like, I don't know what else to say other than that is pretty sad. Like, there's nothing else to say. Regardless, you run it anyways. It's your best steel move. Psychic Fangs, probably one of your best psychic moves that can't miss. So you're going to go with that as well. I went Knockoff and Wild Charge, but this could easily be something along the lines of Close Combat, Stone Edge, any of the coverage moves, Flare Blitz. Right, any of the coverage moves I have mentioned earlier are probably valid to run on Solgaleo, right? It's just, there's not a lot going on, right? Maybe Knockoff. Okay, so what we can do here now is Calyrex is going to click Astro Barrage. We're going to live because we're Assault Vest, and we're going to knock it off, and we're going to kill it in return, right? oh, we're in front of a Kyogre, we can start wild charging and putting out some big damage. But the problem is, you just don't do enough. Like, in theory, the concept here is great, right? You have an Assault Vest, they can't lower your stats, you're sitting around. In theory, that's amazing. Right? Like, sounds amazing. And then you just go and run some calcs, you take a look at what's going on in the metagame right now. The Psychic typing really doesn't do you any favors. It almost forces you to go with a type that resists Ghost or resists Fairy. You could try to go with, like, well, not Shiny. Shiny Solgaleo is ugly. Terra Normal, which is something cool as well. Right? You get to go Terra Normal, you remove that Ghost weakness from the Calyrex Shadow. You only now have one weakness, and that is to fighting, which you can probably play around with your other slots. You also, if you can build yourself faster than some of the Urshifus, you can Psychic Fangs them before they end up killing you. There's some good to be said about Terra Normal. I still think Terra Fairy is your most consistent Terra, very similar to its friend Lunala. Terra Fairy seems to be the most consistent from when I've looked at it, but you need max attack on this thing. Like, as I've gone over before, you do not have the offensive pressure of a restricted legendary in this format to keep up with the other restricted legendaries. If you're going to have any chance of doing so, you need max attack. Now, this could be a hot take. This might be me just, like, kind of giving up on Solgaleo because I think it sucks. You may be able to drop it, but I really do think you benefit a lot from just maximizing this attack and trying to get something done with this Pokemon. Like, it just doesn't feel good. I haven't personally tested it, but I've seen a few others do it, and the results are all the same. But just, you're working so hard to try and get wins. It's just not worth it at the end of the day, right? But you're going to go for this, and once again, the spread doesn't really do too much. I sat 124, that outpaces max speed Incineroar. Once again, not something you're going to see, but I don't know what else is in that speed tier to really hit. You can definitely maneuver this, drop the defense. I didn't really have a defensive calc anyways. Maybe go a little bit faster, right? That's definitely up for grabs. You can 100% play around with that. The 9268 with the Assault Vest, that's going to allow you to live a Choice Specs Astro Barrage from a Calyrex Shadow, which once again, the concept there is they're not going to Terra because they think they're going to knock you out. You survive the Astro Barrage and you click knockoff back into them, right? There's something to be said there that might be a little bit cool, right? That's something, right? I was really grasping at straws here, just trying to get something for you guys on the sheet, and this is kind of what I came up with. Once again, I don't think there's optimal here, but like, for what it's worth, I think this is probably one of the better starting points. Then I said, because we're so low in our attack stat, let's just send a choice band set. I recommend either why do I never say that right? Either Terra Stellar or a Terra Steel, something very consistent. I like Terra Steel. I really do. I think that's something to be said on a choice band variant, right? I'm going to be walking in and I'm going to be spamming Sunsteel Strike, right? I want to put as much damage on the board as I possibly can with my piece right here. I can't get intimidated, so it's not like they can bring that in. Maybe you pair this with like a Giraffe, right? Like a Farigiraf, and then they can't click Fake Out either, and you just get to do massive damage with Choice Band Solgaleo. Now, I don't hate that spread. It's a little weird. It's a little peculiar. But, you know, it's something that I could definitely see working. You go Crunch on this set because if I'm banded, once I knock off the item, I'm doing less. So Crunch actually becomes more valuable on this build. Once again, and the coverage moves are completely up to you. I chose Close Combat Flare, but just to deviate from what I chose on the other one, just to make sure I talked about them a little bit. But you could easily try to put like a banded Stone Edge on here, right? I would love to get like a Stomping Tantrum. But you don't get Stomping Tantrum. You don't get High Horsepower. The only ground moves you get are all spread. It's a little bit sad, you know? It's just a little bit sad because, like, I know a lot of players love Solgaleo. They love Solgaleo's design. I personally am not a big fan. In fact, if you've been around the channel for a while, you know I have a whole slogan saying, friends don't let friends use Solgaleo, right? It's just not for me. I have never loved it. I think you have to work harder than you want to. But something else I haven't really mentioned here that I probably should mention would be like a supportive Solgaleo. Now, and I'm not talking AV, I am talking like a full-on, I'm going to sit back and support and do a supportive set with Solgaleo. Now, this is going to consist of like, probably Sunsteel Strike is one of your only attacking moves, right? You can go Sunsteel Strike, you go Morning Sun, you get to heal yourself up depending on how much damage you've done, you get to heal yourself up, you get to click Wide Guard, right? And you act as a full-on support piece. Now, once again, using your restricted as a support piece in a single restricted format feels horrible to me. you really truly, in my opinion, and I guess on this you'd go Snarl, right? But like, you really truly, in my opinion, want your restricted to be doing the damage. That should be your damage dealer. Whether you set it, whether you are setting up to try and get that damage off, whether you are repositioning just to send big water spouts or big glacial lances, right? Whatever the case may be, you want the restricted doing damage in a single one. So I don't think a set like this actually works. I would not recommend it for Regulation G. However, if you want to run something like a really bulky Solgaleo that can be supportive, maybe beside like a Groudon in Regulation G, or sorry, in the future regulation, once we do get dual restricted, right? You get Morning Sun, which heals up a little bit more. In the sun, it feels there's at least something there. You know, you're not wasting your only restricted slot. Maybe you run this beside Koraidon. Actually, that kind of sounds kind of cool when you can run this beside Koraidon, because then this is your Flutter Mane answer, right? You could go ahead and say, I'm going to become a mono steel type, right? I'm just going to sit here as a steel type. I now have a Flutter Mane answer, a really good Flutter Mane answer as well, because your stats don't suck, right? Your stats aren't horrible. It's a little unfortunate that you have 113 special attack. It would have been nice if they had that in like the special defense instead. But regardless, your stats aren't horrid, right? You have some decent stats. You are a pretty strong steel type, and steel types are far and few between. So maybe beside Koraidon, it's an option. But at that point, why not just put like a Zacian beside the Koraidon? Because Koraidon would scare away the Incineroar, right? Why am I not using a better steel type in that case? But regardless, there's some things here, there's some concepts here for you guys to take a look at if you really are set on running Solgaleo. I don't think Solgaleo is very good. I'm going to close it. That's been my whole thing the entire time. But I did want to touch upon some of the options for you guys if you were looking to run Solgaleo. But with that, guys, that is gonna do it, guys. We are running out of restricteds to talk about that are actually like good. So we're gonna this is gonna have to be the type of guy we're getting. We're gonna be me grasping at straws for the for some of these sets here. But if you guys do enjoy these types of guides, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and of course, I really do appreciate it. But with that, I'm gonna get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in a future video.